Hi there, my name is Professor Purwo Santoso from Department of Politics and Government, Gadjah Mada University, Indonesia. And in this occasion, I would like to talk about religion and politics, but the purpose of this lecture is to understand democratization, more specifically democratization in Asia. But I'm not expert in the Asia as a whole, so then my talk will be mostly taking reference on Indonesian case. Okay, the idea of talking about religion, politics, and democratization is talking about democracy, and in each country, including the one in Asia, there is a need to make and to remake its institutional setup in more contextual way in order to make democracy as mode of governance governable. And this topic is important because there has been an attempt to standardize democracy in accordance to liberal mindset. It's not always easy to implement. And when we talk about liberal democracy in particular context, then we are coming to terms with the problem of making religious power, religious politics at work. And most of the religious problem everywhere in the world has been confined within the idea of making nation state works. So then when we talk about the religion and politics in this regard, we are talking about how religion functional in society and how can be confined within the governance of a nation state in a more democratic way. So these are the tension, and because every country need to come to term religious forces in their own way, and also the way to bring into life the idea of nation state is different, then there is a puzzle to match up. And therefore then what we need to do is to make and to remake from time to time. So there is no one set of democracy which should be implemented unless we sacrifice the life of the people. So in order to make the governance realistic and applicable, then we have to talk about the relationship between religion and politics, more specifically in the way state works. Now, there has been an attempt to standardize or theorize politics in particular way, especially when we are talking about democracy. One of the popular conceptual framework is proposed by the institution in Sweden, I think IDEA, and it's trying to itemize global standard or global ways of conceptualizing democracy. And more simplistic way has been the idea of making democracy index, meaning that there is one idea of democracy and there is one standard for everyone, and it's a great problem if we link too much or preoccupied with the global standard. And therefore, I propose to look at it in more contextual way, because each country has to come to terms with religious affairs in a specific manner, and also the way to bring governance not easily carry out within the pure idea of nation state. For example, Indonesia has been adopting an idea of nation state, but it's not one nation confined within one state. What Indonesia has is one state to confine so many nationhood, including religious nationalism. So then there are different facets, different features of religious attachment, religious organizations, and we still have to come to them with local identity making, patrimonialism, and so forth, so that then if we we want to have one state, one nation is not important, not feasible in Indonesia. And therefore then Indonesia has to construct the idea of nation state, and therefore then in order to bring democracy, then we have to turn to term how religion should be set in practice. And because of the anticipation of difficulty of governing religious affinity within the society, then there has been attempt from the beginning when Indonesia tried to establish a nation state after independence in 1945, we restrained not to adopt the idea of Islamic state. So there is a challenge for not allowing religious affinity transform into legalistic view of religious practice, which put more emphasis on legal aspect of it, and therefore Indonesia from the beginning prevent the idea of making Indonesia as a nation state, and this is different to what Pakistan has been attempting to do. Pakistan was split from India, and at the time Pakistan, then we have West Pakistan and East Pakistan, and then later on Pakistan and Bangladesh was split in order to confine religious affinity within one state, and Indonesia tried to look the other way around. So because of the idea of nation state preoccupied with different sort of religious power, religious capacity, then in order to match with the global standard, Indonesia works as a nation state, but within different notion of original idea of nation state established in Europe, because we have one state in Indonesia, and then we have to engage in the kind of political engineering to make religiosity match with the nationhood, nation state or civic nationalism. And therefore then when we come to terms with the international standard, then we are not in easy situation. Okay, why contextual analysis is important? Because religion can work in good or bad way. Religion can unite people, so people who have the same set of belief, then making their own groupings. And because any religion is subject to interpretation, any religion is having their set of interpretation of the religious belief, then religious affinity typically more than one, and each of them for political reason, like for election, then they are competing one another, and when each religious affiliations are competing one another, then religion work as divided rather than the bridging of religious affinity. This is because liberal democracy has been tempting people to organize according to their group of believers, and identity making is important element in mobilizing the people, and the need for mobilizing people then lead us to make religious as a political instrument for political purposes, and this is what make democracy is very difficult to bring together. Now, the case of Indonesia is interesting because Indonesia mostly are Muslim, and we deliberately not to establish, not to declare Indonesia as an Islamic state. But then we decided to bring each religion within the state. This is completely different to what we have in Europe, in which state need to be secular, and being secular state means religious affairs should go beyond the state reach, because religion meant to be a private business. But Indonesia do the other way around. Yes, we are not adopting Islamic state, but on the other hand, we invite each religious believer in one group, member of state of Indonesia, and then we bring some religious affair to the state. So we have Ministry of Religious Affairs. We have some issues on conflict on religious matters. So then we have religious education system, for example. And on the one hand, the state provides the freedom for every religious believer to practice their religion, but the state or legal norm are not always the same with the religious norm. So this is because of the possibility of religion to unite as well as to divide. So then Indonesia's design of nation state try to make all religions confined within one state, but then they all are equally treated within the state. And then instead of getting rid of religion to public affairs, then Indonesia worked the other way around. And most of public affairs, public services in the country also run by religious organizations. Most of education system run by religious-based organization, both Muslim and non-Muslim. And this is because religion can contribute and leaving religious believer to practice in public services within the country is important. And therefore then governing the religion to be part of nation state Indonesia was a big project. And this project has been ongoing and maybe everlasting. So then the tension between religion and design of nation state is on the redefinition, on the remaking from time to time. This is just a case of Indonesia. The case from China. China was not nation state from the beginning. And as demand for democracy was set as a global standard, then China tried to define democracy in their own way, and then the ability of Chinese government to justify that is the way to put democracy in practice has become an external challenge, because the system might be acceptable to the people, but maybe international standard is not easily accepted. So then there is a tension to mitigate conflict within the country, and on the other side, we need to justify the regime, the standard model of governance implementable in practice. Now, as I said, each state has been presumed to be a nation state, and religion to a large extent define nationality and nationalism in a particular country. And therefore, for example, Indonesia as a Muslim dominated population, then we have to come to terms with Indonesian ways of making nation state Indonesia works. But India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh decide the format of nation state in different model. But what I'm saying here is that the majority of religion in every country define how national governance work, and because we to some extent agree on making democracy workable at the national state, so then there has been a variety of implementing the idea of nation state. Some are choosing parliamentarian, some are choosing presidential, some are to mix because of the particular situation that they have to take into consideration. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a primacy of nation state to deal with religious affair, and therefore then we have to renegotiate the meaning and the practice of nation state in order to be able to accommodate religious politics in each country. And in order to understand this, there are three elements that we need to clarify. The first question is, are politics and religions intersectional? Secondly, if yes, where is the intersectionality between politics and religion relevant to understanding democratization, more specifically in Asia? And then, what does democratization entail within this context? And to clarify this, I would like to say that yes, they are linking one another. So democracy is the big concept for us to think about it, and there should be unique set of democratic system. There should be unique way of institutionalizing the idea of democracy, given the will of democracy, religious practice and religious politics, and the other will is the idea or template of nation state as generic design for bringing about democracy in particular context. So, because when we talk about democracy, inevitably we have to come to terms with religious belief and religious believers. Then religion is important element, but to make religion functional, then we should adopt religious setup into the whole design of state and the nation state, which typically also taking into account religious nationalism in practice, that should be accommodating. And as I said, there are extreme model of kicking out religion from state or embracing and including in all the religious believer in one system. So the point I want to make here is that yes, democracy means particular way in literature, but there should be a courage for each country to define or to fine-tune the idea of democracy in such a way so that easy to govern religious politics, and also making a nation state as a workable template. Otherwise, we are in a great problem. So, to summarize, the first part of my presentation is that democracy is a puzzle. Each country all over the world has to come to terms. The majority of thinker has been conceptualized democracy as liberal governance, but given the difficulty of bringing libertarian mindset and liberal thinking into practice, each country react to the democracy in their own ways, and therefore then what we need to do is to redefine democracy in such a way. And on the other hand, there has been process of making the idea of nation state more operational, more workable, more accommodative to the need for religious configuration and religious power in their own country. So the intersectional is in the model of democracy. This is the first part of my presentation.